In today's video, we visit one of the most well-known tourist destinations in Cornwall, St. Michael's Mount. It is managed by the National Trust, and St. Michael's Mount is famous for being a tidal island, which you can walk to via the stone causeway when the tide is low. But during the high tide, the causeway is completely covered in water. Because we were visiting in the middle of the 2020 pandemic, we tried to make our visit as safe as possible, driving ourselves there, staying outside the whole time, and remaining a good distance from other humans. This is an example of our social distancing, as the video shows Ian walking through the sand at low tide toward the island rather than on the causeway with all the other people. Our challenge with drone photography, and actually any video during this visit, was twofold. First of all, it was mad windy. It was a miracle Ian could fly the drone around at all. Secondly, the lighting was all wrong, so the images of the castle are not as good as we approach, but get much better once we were on the island. You know how you can tell that we were visiting on a very windy day? My hair is going in all different directions with each photo, and occasionally does completely insane things. I look like a Batman character in this photo, and I'm showing you anyway because I'm a YouTuber and I have no shame. Because of the horrid wind noise, I'll be narrating nearly everything in voiceover, because the video that I took during the visit has pretty abominable audio.
Today we're visiting St. Michael's Mount, similar to the one in France, not quite as impressive, but still a really cool place to visit, related to it as a Benedictine monastery, and they think that there's been a monastery here since the 700s. And similar to the one in France, it's connected to the mainland by a causeway that floods over during high tide.
We reserved tickets for the garden tour here on St. Michael's Mount, and that's what we're doing now. In the middle of gale force winds. What makes the gardens of St. Michael's Mount so unusual is that they have the feel of a almost tropical island location when you look at it in one direction. You forget you're even in England with all the palm trees and the rocks and the seaside. But then you turn around and you see this steep hillside covered in beautiful flowers and a vast array of plants. And then, perched at the top, you see this magnificent castle. Now this is what I call a garden with a view. There were lovely rock formations all throughout this impressive collection of succulents. Kind of made me think I was in the American Southwest when I was in this part of the garden. But then all you have to do is look up to the top of the hill and you're quickly reminded that you are at the foot of the castle on St. Michael's Mount. Thankfully, we were able to avoid the crowded bits and enjoy a leisurely stroll through these beautiful gardens. I enjoyed walking through this walled garden as it was less crowded and less windy than other areas of the expansive gardens. This butterfly let me film him for just a second before flying off. I tried to find magenta flowers as always, but there were not very many, so here's all you get in this video. Our visit was in mid-September, so obviously a lot of flowers were not in bloom that would have been lovely earlier in the summer. But the succulent garden was great and had many intriguing varieties of flora on display, many of which reminded me of lettuces or artichokes.
So we decided to stop at this well because 1966 was the year that I was born. So we thought this would be a great photo opportunity.
Of course, the snack bar had locally made Cornish ice cream, and Ian had to sample some. So we seated ourselves in the picnic area while he enjoyed that. If you've seen our St. Ives video, you know that we had learned our lesson about seagulls, so we kept a keen eye out. These seagulls were thinking about trying to nab food from some of the picnickers below, but the wind was way too strong, and the people were too guarded with their food, so the thieves did not get away with anything. Once again on this holiday, we were well and truly chuffed that we ended up with a sunny, clear day with no rain. Despite the noisy wind, we did have the chance to enjoy the lovely garden at the foot of this gorgeous castle. Ian loves gardens, and we didn't get to visit most of the ones in Cornwall he was planning to see because of the fact that we had to alter our trip so much when it moved 3 months later than initially planned due to the pandemic. So he was happy that we at least got to tour the gardens of St. Michael's Mount. We were really glad we made the trip here, despite it being a bit too touristy. Back near the car park where we left our car, I found this sweet little pond with a pretty swan paddling about, so I had to include it in the video of our St. Michael's Mount visit. Next up, we visited Porthcurno Beach, in my quest to find the beaches that looked like they belonged in the show Poldark. This place was gorgeous, and I was really happy to see it, but boy was it windy. I thought St. Michael's Mount was bad, but being up on this cliff overlooking the beach was kind of death-defying. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to be part of a rescue operation that day, so we were very careful in where we hiked. And we were a bit concerned later to see rescue helicopters out trying to assist someone. It took all my concentration not to get blown off a cliff and hold on to my phone. This next brief video clip shows how desperately we were trying to stay standing upright and not get blown over. I couldn't film for long because I was worried for my safety. Porthcurno was a lovely Poldark-looking beach. You just have to imagine people in period costumes and maybe a smuggler's boat landing on the shore. One thing we spotted at the top of the hill was this cinder block bunker. I huddled in it for a moment to get a respite from the brutal windstorm. I didn't know it at the time, but I believe this bunker is part of the communications network, which had Porthcurno as a key node in an undersea web of telegraph cables that were a very important communications channel in the late 1800s and early 1900s. After hiking around a bit on the top of the hill, we made our way down to the beach for a closer look at the sea. The waves were a lovely aqua blue and quite high, not surprising given the strong wind. Here is my video of the rocks I was hiding next to get shelter from the wind, as well as a look at the beach and the waves, with me trying to hold the camera steady despite the wind. This is me hiding out in the cleft of a rock in the middle of a massive windstorm. Once I step away from these rocks, it's like a huge sandstorm, like just sand blasting your face and your eyeballs. It's a little brutal. But we really wanted to come here because it was one of the Poldark beaches. And it is a beautiful beach and beautiful cliffs around it, but man, this wind is wicked. Have you been to Porthcurno Beach? Other beaches in Cornwall? Are they always this windy? A cool discovery we made down near the beach was this cute little rock bridge that I got Ian to pose on for me. Step off the edge, I can break your fall. It's my life. We also hiked back up to the top of the hill opposite to get a view of the beach from there and walked the path toward the Minnock Theatre. The cliffs and the beach were even more beautiful from this vantage point. It's a long way down, but the water and the beach were just lovely. The sun is coming up, are you ready to go? We can take a ride, we can take it slow. This is unfortunately the closest we could get to the Minnock Theatre that day, but we have sworn to go back again when there isn't a pandemic and we can get tickets to a show. Anyone else out there a fan of horrible histories? We raised our boys reading the book series, which fostered a love of history and of Britain in them at a young age. Even though we were going to be back in the States by late October, it would have been some wonderfully nostalgic fun for us to see this Horrible Histories performance at the Minnock, especially if our sons could have been with us.
So it's the end of another exhausting day.
So many adventures. We started by going to
St. Michael's Mount.
which I had never been to before, and Ian had not been
Since the 1970s when I was a kid.
Yep, and it was super windy. So windy.
Yeah.
And then we went
To the Minnock Theater area. We couldn't get into Minnock Theater because of the COVID. They were restricting entry and I couldn't get anything booked.
So we went to Porthcurno Beach and hiked way up high and way down low on some steep paths, and that was so windy. But I wanted to see the Poldark beaches. But yeah, we really, that was a little death-defying. I think that was the scariest part of our whole vacation so far, being on those very steep paths.
So I would say driving down some narrow lanes in Dartmoor were the scariest.
Yep, that was scary too. Now we're back at the farm. Bunny the sheep and I would like you to please check out some of our other vlogs. Thanks for watching, and do something good in the world today.